Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Be Candid with your host Amber, which is me if you didn't already know. It's currently Friday and I thought it would be fun to film. I always say film, my god, we're like 10 episodes in, can I stop saying film? To record an episode for you guys all about ambition, which is kind of a touchy subject for me, so I'm excited to get into it. I also haven't planned out this episode like super thoroughly because I kind of just wanted to ramble with you guys for a little bit. You know, it's been a long week, we're still in lockdown, everyone's going a bit mad, me especially, so I just wanted to have a chill one with you guys today and just talk about a subject that I find kind of confusing, kind of interesting, and definitely one that like has a lot of debate around it, I guess, and we'll get into that a little later on, I suppose. I wanted to start off this episode just by thanking you all for clicking on it. Thank you all for listening along. If you do want to go ahead and leave a review, if this isn't your first episode you're listening to, if you've listened to others, please feel free, and you can always follow us on our Instagram page at To Be Candid Podcast. In terms of this week, like I said, it's been a bit of a long one. It's been pretty chill. I crocheted a hat. I know, crazy times. But I'm also working my 9-to-5 job as an event executive, which has been going really well actually. And I've had another event this week in terms of like virtual event, webinar kind of situation, which it was really fun. And yeah, just things are, it's the same old every week, you know guys, just things are plodding along. But I did have a FaceTime with my mum's puppy Archie, who is a border terrier and is freaking adorable. He's about 10 weeks old and I'm going to meet him over Easter weekend, which isn't too far away, and that's like the only glimmer of hope I'm holding on to right now. It's the only thing getting me through is all the cute photos of puppies, which I'm sure we can all agree really, you know, boost the mood when you see a very cute puppy, so I'm happy to have those. But today we're talking about something a little bit different. We're talking about ambition, which is kind of a strange topic because it's one that I hadn't necessarily even thought of, like crossed my mind until 2020 lockdown hit, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, I think throughout my childhood and everything I've always been quite ambitious, or like tried to be a high achiever to get the best grades I could. So I guess in that sense I was quite ambitious, but I was never ambitious in the sense of like I 100% know what I want to do with the rest of my life, or had like a dream career goal or anything like that. So I just kind of wanted to get into it today and discuss it and kind of figure it out with you guys through all the ups and downs that come with it, because I know we're all in a similar stage of life right now in terms of like early 20s, so we're all just trying to figure it out, you know. It's what this podcast is all about. So I'm going to kick it off by talking about kind of my childhood and how like ambition, what that meant to me as a child, I guess. First off, I'll define it for you. I did do some prep. I googled a definition. So the definition of ambition is a strong desire to do or achieve something. And another definition which I related to a bit was desire and determination to achieve success. So I think that's like super apparent. Like, it's pretty obvious what ambition means. But for me, it was something that I really embraced from an early age. I really remember, even as like a receptioner, like 5 years old or what have you, just really enjoying doing well. I think I enjoyed that, what praise that came with, having that sense of pride that I'd done something well, and that really stuck for a very long time. Like, I really tried my best to be the best at everything, and if I ever got something wrong I would really kick myself for that. And I think with that came just the desire to obviously do well and just get more and just be successful. And I didn't necessarily know what that meant at that stage. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be a really successful lawyer. Like, I couldn't really define the terms of it. I just knew I wanted to do well and I wanted to be successful, but I didn't necessarily know what. And it wasn't actually until year 11 when I did a like career test on some strange website, and one of them that popped up was an event manager, and one of my friends, Jenny, was like, you'd be really good at that, you should look into that. And apparently it stuck, because I did that test when I did that test when I was 16, and I'm sat here today at 23 as an event executive. So I really followed through on that one. But that was kind of the first time that was like, oh yeah, maybe that's what I could do. But even to this day, I'm still like, well, I could do this, and maybe I'll do that, and maybe I'll try 3 things at once. You know, I've still got a lot of different avenues I kind of want to explore or figure out. So being ambitious was always hard, because I think especially when you're in sixth form or uni, when you have to kind of start making those decisions of like, what do you want to do? It was always really hard for me to answer, because I didn't necessarily know. And people always thought of me as super ambitious, which also put another weird pressure on me, because they'd be like, oh, you're going to own your oh my God, I cannot talk. They would be like, oh, you're going to own your own company one day, you're going to be so successful, you're going to have all of these entrepreneurial things going for you. And it just didn't sit right with me for some reason. I was like, yeah, maybe. Like, even though I enjoyed doing well, I don't know if I was super ambitious. Like, even to this day, I'm not sure if like a major career is what I'm after, which we'll get into a little bit. But I think that obviously the first sign maybe for me that like ambition could be a question mark in my books was after doing my GCSEs, which I did 14 GCSEs. I put a huge amount of pressure on myself. I was like a revision geek through and through. I revised so hard, so many notes, and I just wanted to do well. I don't know why. It had been instilled in me for a really long time that I just had to do well. It was like the be all or end all. And it wasn't like I necessarily had outside influences telling me that. I think I just kind of figured it out that like if I did really well, good things would happen. So I think I just clung on to that, and it was just an easy way, I guess, for me to get praise or to like work out the next step or secure the next step just by doing well. And I knew in order to do well, I had to revise. So I would revise like there was no tomorrow. And I did all my GCSEs in like 2014, maybe, some year around there. And after I finished them, like literally the next day, I entered the biggest slump. I was going to say of my life, that's not quite true. One of the biggest slumps, just because I had put all of this pressure on myself and worked myself up so hard, and it was everything that, like, it just consumed my whole day. My whole week was just spent revising. And then when that finished, when that ended, when that stress got taken away, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. Like, I just slept all day, and I'm not sure if that's just because I wore myself out from revising so hard, or that I entered like a little mini stage of depression and I just didn't know what to do with myself, or knowing that I couldn't do any more. You know, that it was taken out of my hands at that point. Like, there was nothing I could physically do to alter any decisions, any grades. Like, everything had been done at that point, so all I could do was wait. And it was a really strange place to be in, and again, one that I didn't really recognise I was in until I started uni. And my mum was like, oh, well, be careful, because you know what happened at GCSEs. I was like, no, I don't. And then she told me, she was like, Amber, do you not remember sleeping for like weeks on end? Like, you wouldn't leave your room, like you wouldn't eat. I was like, oh my God, yeah, that was a thing. And it was only then that I kind of noticed how strange that was and how like uncharacteristic that was for me. So that was kind of an odd situation to be in. But yeah, like I said, I did go on to A-levels, which I think I did pretty well in. I got ABB. I think I got ABB. Yeah, I got ABB, I think. Now I'm saying it sounds really wrong, but I think I did something along those lines. And I managed to get into the university I wanted to do the course that I wanted to. So I went to the University of Greenwich and did events management, and that was huge for me. I was so happy that I had managed to do that. Again, my grades weren't exactly what I wanted, being the stupid high achiever that I am. I put pressure on myself to want to get higher than that, but it was perfectly acceptable by the uni, which I was very grateful for. So yeah, all worked out, and just this whole ambition thing kind of followed me into university, by just putting immense amounts of pressure on myself to get my essays done and get good grades the whole way through, which I do thank myself for, because obviously having good grades early on and just like a good average means that if you do drop a few points, it doesn't injure you or hurt you as much as it would if you had some kind of like shaky results throughout. So I do thank myself for it, but at the same time, I probably went a bit overboard. Like, I didn't need to put as much pressure on myself as I did, because it wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, I've got to do really well, I'll revise really hard. it will be like, oh, I've got to do really well, I'll revise for an hour, then watch 2 hours of Netflix and hate myself for it. So it wasn't like the healthiest perspective to have on it, but again, just this like sense that I had to be successful throughout my grades was just this huge thing, which after leaving university is so funny because people don't talk about GCSE results or A-level results. You know, you like write them on your CV, but I don't even know if that's necessary. Like, I could probably just write University of Greenwich on my CV and they'd just be like, okay, cool, she went to uni, you know? So it's kind of a weird conception that I think gets pushed on you as kids, that your GCSEs and everything like that is the most important thing ever. And I don't know why that's a thing, because so many people now are doing such cool jobs without like any qualifications or without having like a typical linear education, you know? So kind of interesting there, and I'm sure that will change moving forward, but just something that I carried with me for a really long time. And it wasn't until my graduation in 2020, poor Amber, the 2020 graduate. If you are also a 2020 graduate out there, I feel for you, I stand with you, and I'm sorry, but I know a lot of people had it a lot worse, but it did really, really suck for a very long time because obviously, like I had said, I'd always been a hard worker, a high achiever. I just wanted to get my graduate job and get started on my career. Even though I didn't necessarily know what that meant, I just knew I needed to get into the corporate world sooner rather than later and figure it out from there. And I couldn't do that in 2020 because of lockdown and everything. Events got put on hold. A lot of event jobs no longer exist because the industry was just hit so hard. And that was really difficult for me at the beginning because I am such a planner, so it kind of ruined the plan that I had in my head. And when that happens, it does take me a long time to like readjust and figure out what my next steps are. So for a while, I almost felt like I was on summer holidays and I was just kind of like going to the park, doing some sunbathing, coming home, eating dinner, and that was pretty much it. Like, it didn't feel that bad because at that point we didn't obviously know what was going to happen, and it just felt like, oh, in September I'm going back to uni. Even though I had graduated, it just gave me like summer holiday vibes. So it wasn't until like end of August that I realised like, oh, hang on a minute, this is real, and what the heck am I supposed to do now? And I think that time of just having those like 3 or 4 months, whatever it was, to kind of reflect on where I was and what I wanted my life to look like after lockdown finished and everything like that, really exposed a lot of things for me in terms of ambition, because I don't think you need the shiniest car and the best job and the biggest house to be successful. And I don't know where that like rhetoric or whatever the word is, that narrative has come from, because I think it can be really damaging for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons. Obviously, consumerism and the world want you to want more all the time so that you buy more and they can make more money, which I get, but is also like super toxic in the sense that, you know, once you get those things, you're not necessarily happier because you're still the same person, but maybe just with a slightly shinier car, you know? So those things all seem very temporary to me as well. Like, in after this life, or in 10 years time, even if we're talking like a smaller scale, are you going to have those same things? Probably not. Will have owning those things made you a better person or a bigger person or love yourself more? Probably not. So it's just a really weird headspace to be in, especially coming from a background where ambition was just such a huge focus and being successful was such a huge focus. And now I feel like I've started to do this 180 of like, I want to make money. What's the saying? I want to make money to live and not live to make money. You know? Does that make sense? There's this anecdote that I read in a book, and I think I've seen it in other places, so you might have already heard it. But I wanted to read it out to you guys because I just thought it was super poignant and really like demonstrated the point I was trying to make probably a lot better than I've been saying it so far. So bear with me as I read this out. Okay, so one day a fisherman was lying on a beautiful beach with his fishing pole propped up in the sand and his solitary line cast out into the sparkling blue surf. He was enjoying the warmth of the afternoon sun and the prospect of catching a fish. About that time, a businessman came walking down the beach, trying to relieve some of his stress of his workday. He noticed the fisherman sitting on the beach and decided to find out why this fisherman was fishing instead of working harder to make a living for himself and his family. "You aren't going to catch many fish that way," said the businessman. "You should be working rather than lying on the beach." The fisherman looked up at the businessman, smiled, and replied, "And what will my reward be?" "Well, you can get bigger nets and catch more fish," was the businessman's answer. "And then what will my reward be?" asked the fisherman, still smiling. The businessman replied, "You will make money and you'll be able to buy a boat, which will then result in larger catches of fish." "And then what will my reward be?" asked the fisherman again. The businessman was beginning to get a little irritated with the fisherman's questions. "You can buy a bigger boat and hire some people to work for you," he said. "And then what will my reward be?" repeated the fisherman. The businessman was getting angry. "Don't you understand? You can build up a fleet of fishing boats, sail all over the world, and let all your employees catch fish for you." Once again, the fisherman asked, "And then what will my reward be?" The businessman was red with rage and shouted at the fisherman, "Don't you understand that you can become so rich that you will never have to work for your living again? You can spend all the rest of your days sitting on the beach looking at the sunset. You won't have a care in the world." The fisherman, still smiling, looked up and said, "And what do you think I'm doing right now?" I just think that's so good. There's another variant of the story which talks about having enough money to be able to like spoil his family and like take his wife out for dinner, and he's like, "I already do that." You know, it seems silly to me that so many people want to spend their prime years, their 20s and whatever, just working to the bone, making all this money so that they can retire early. And I just think, why wouldn't you work a bit now, spend a bit now, go travelling now, and then maybe work for a bit longer in your later years, you know? It's just kind of interesting to me how that works. And I don't think I'll ever be the one to have a big flashy house and everything like that, because I think it's the people inside the house that are more important and more valuable to me and will make me feel like more of a success, which again is something that just came from like life experience. That's like, you don't learn that in school, and I don't know why. I don't know why they push you to get the higher grades and get into the Ivy League or the Russell Group schools or whatever, so that you can get this killer career if you don't know, I don't know, if it's not that kind of ambition that you're after, if it's not that kind of success that you're after, but maybe you don't realise that until later years. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but that's just where my head's been at recently, just because obviously starting this graduate role and talking about promotions and things and where I want to be in 5 years' time, what I want to be doing in 10 years' time. And I just want to be doing what I enjoy with the people I love. And I think when people ask that question and you get that kind of answer, they kind of look down on you a little bit. I don't know why. Like if one of my family members even was to ask me like, "Oh, what do you want to do next?" or like whatever the question would be, that kind of along those lines. If I had said like, "Oh, I want to, I don't know, wake up late with my boyfriend, get breakfast and chill out," I think they would think I was lazy or, I don't know, immature, or just living in like a dream world, you know, not really having my feet on the ground and being realistic. But like, I feel like if I had said, "Oh, I want to be, I don't know, a senior event executive running a team of 5 people," they'd be like, "Oh, cool." But like, why is that a better answer? I don't get it, you know? I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. But that's currently what I've been feeling recently. I'm not sure what's brought it on, but I think it's just this kind of, I almost felt a bit cheated, I guess, that I've been like almost told the wrong thing. And I know they have to do it to get like their records looking good and their, you know, what's it called, like their rankings and everything higher in terms of like schools and universities. And obviously parents just want the best for you, and they know like if you do better in school, you'll probably have more options in later years and stuff when you're a bit older, which I get and I appreciate, but all of the pressure and this sense of that I need to be ambitious and I need to be hungry for more, whether that be a career or a house or a car, what have you, I just don't really get it. Like, I'd be quite happy, I think, living in a little shack on a beach somewhere and just catching fish and lying in the sun and letting the businessmen laugh at me, because that just sounds way nicer than like grinding every day in a job that you potentially don't like to retire early so that when you're old you can lie on a beach. You know, does that make any sense? Who knows? I'm currently getting dead feet because I'm sat on my bedroom floor where I like to film. I can say film because I'm recording this on like my photo booth on my Mac, just so I can pop it on the YouTube channel as well, because I know some of you enjoy watching rather than listening along. But yeah, that was currently where my headspace is at. And then I thought, after I'd got all that little spiel out the way, that we could just chat for a bit, because, you know, it's Friday, it's girls' night, but that is something that I just felt super passionate about and wanted to talk, because I know being a graduate is super scary in itself. Like, navigating your 20s is so bizarre, especially when you do have this kind of niggling feeling in the back of your head, like, oh, you should be trying to get the better paid job and the bigger job and the better house and everything, and it can make you feel a bit deflated, because sometimes, like, you get those things or you work really hard for those things and you don't necessarily feel better for it. Whereas if I had got the smaller place with the garden like I have, I can read outside and I can enjoy the sunshine, and that just means so much more to me than having a bigger, flashier apartment, you know? So there's that. Okay, so in terms of the chatty portion of this podcast, which we all know and love, but also I feel like this episode has been pretty chatty already, so I hope you've stuck with me. But this weekend is just going to be a really nice chill one. I'm hoping to sell a whole load of my clothes on Vinted, which is like my new favourite thing ever. It's pretty similar to Depop, but you don't have any of your like money taken away, in terms of like they don't get a percentage from your sale, and also I just think things are a little cheaper on there, which I obviously really like, being the saver that I am, so I can buy some pretty cool things on there for less than Depop, which I really appreciate. So I've been making like a list A of all of my clothes and a list B. So the list A is literally going to be things that I love wholeheartedly 100% and I see myself wearing for a very, very long time, and the list B is going to be like pretty much anything else. Like, even if I like it like 90%, I'm still going to pop it on there, and if people want to pay for it, they can have it, and that way I get to have a bit more fun with my wardrobe. But I think that's going to take me a very, very, very long time tomorrow to kind of take photos of everything and post everything. And other than that, I'm not really seeing anyone, to be honest. We're hoping to maybe go for a walk around the park, because that will be nice. But I've already bought some like postage stuff, because I've already sold a couple of items on there, so I will be popping to the post office at some point, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why. I just find it takes so long. Like, there's always a queue, which I get because obviously I'm a member of that queue, but I'm like, how is that there always a queue? What are people always posting? I don't really get it, but it's just one of those things that has to be done, so hopefully I can do it in bulk rather than like going every day, because that would really, really suck. That would actually be a really fun episode to do, like pet peeves, and get you guys to write in your pet peeves, and then maybe I could react to them, because I love hearing what people find annoying, because sometimes they're the most random things that you had never thought of, or just wouldn't even be like a blip on your radar, but to someone else could be like, oh, so annoying, like gratingly annoying. So that would be kind of interesting. So let me know if you'd want to be part of that. Of course, you can write in on @ToBeCandidPodcast on our Instagram page to send in your submissions, because I would love to see them. But that could be fun. I've just been brainstorming like crazy recently. I have been hitting like a bit of a wall with YouTube, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's just because I moved recently, so that was kind of like all the content that was coming out, and I have just started a job, which makes it harder to film things. But I do want to get back onto the like work weeks in my life, and I've had a few requests for people to do like a interview tips or starting a new job tips. Does that make sense? Anyway, those kind of videos, which I obviously would love to do it, and it's like right up my street. And I also have a load of fun things that I bought off Vinted, which I want to show you guys. So hopefully I can do a thrift haul at some point as well. So maybe I can film a video over the weekend if it's nice and bright outside and I can find the time to do it. The other thing that's really tricky is there's no doors in this house. It's kind of like one room in terms of like the kitchen goes into the lounge, which goes up the stairs, which is then our bedroom. The only door is in the bathroom, and obviously the acoustics in the bathroom aren't great. So I have to kind of pick a time in the day where I know Christian is just going to be chilling, or he's going on a bike ride or something, so that he's not, you know, setting off the fire alarm, which happened in the last episode, which you wouldn't have known because I edited it out to save your poor eardrums. But my gosh, he set off the fire alarm like 4 times, I think, trying to cook some chicken. He's not a bad cook, he's a great cook. We just have the world's most sensitive fire alarm, so we had to like open up all the doors and stuff. But I try and find a time where he's not going to be doing that, so it makes editing for me a little easier, and also saves my eardrums because I don't have to listen to it repeatedly whilst I'm trying to edit it out, which works very well. Oh, I guess another update which I didn't tell you about was that I had a blood test. I'm not sure if I ever mentioned this on the podcast actually. Oh, well, maybe I did in my moving episode. But basically after the move I felt super lethargic, super tired, and my limbs felt really heavy, and I had this kind of like pressure behind my eyes where I would get like sensitive to light almost, and I would just like at 4 o'clock I would want to pass out and not move. And it was really strange and kind of uncharacteristic for me. Don't get me wrong, like a girl can nap, but not so much so that like I wouldn't want to get out of bed for dinner and things. It was just really odd. And my mum is anemic, so I was like, maybe I'll just get a blood test, see what's going on, check everything's in working order. And the whole experience was really strange because I hadn't had a blood test before, so I went in and I was like the youngest person there by a good 30 years, and I didn't have an appointment. It was just like walk in and you take a ticket out of like a little slot thing, which like you do at a deli or something, really strange. And I sat down and waited for like 10-15 minutes, which was fine. And then I went into the room and I said to the lady, like, oh, I haven't had this done before, so I don't really know what to do. And she was really nice. She was like quite stern, but also trying to be jokey at the same time. So I didn't really know whether to laugh or not. It was really bizarre. But she spent a while like trying to find a vein, which she eventually did. But she was like prodding me for a while. And she was really sweet. She kept like apologising. And I think she thought she was hurting me, but it really wasn't that bad. Like I really didn't feel anything at all. And I did not look, because as much as I'm like not afraid of needles, like I've never been afraid of like getting a jab or anything, just because I know it has to get done, you know, it's going to get done whether I like it or not, so I'd prefer just to like it and make it a bit easier for everyone. But there was just something that meant I couldn't look. I just thought maybe I would like faint or get a bit squeamish or something, just because a jab is one thing, right? They're injecting something into you, but I'd never seen someone like pulling something out of me in terms of like my blood, so that was kind of interesting. And I waited 3 to 5 days to call up my GP and ask if I was okay, and they said, oh, the doctor will call you back on Wednesday. So I had to wait like another 4 days or something to hear back from the doctor, at which point I was freaking out because I thought, if I'm fine, the nurse or the receptionist should just be able to tell me, right, like, oh no, all's good, all's clear, have a nice weekend, you know, that would have been so easy. But no, I spent my weekend going, oh my gosh, like, am I pregnant? I'm not. Am I horrifically anemic? And I was like, it can't be COVID, because if it was, they would have told me sooner rather than later. Like, they wouldn't have left me till Wednesday. And that whole thing really threw me through a loop. I don't know if I was like overthinking it too much, but I was thinking, if it's urgent enough or like serious enough that the receptionist can't tell me, but it's not urgent enough to tell me right away, it's like pretty low down on the scale in terms of I can wait 3 or 4 days until Wednesday. What the heck is it? Anyway, I got a call from the doctor and he was like, how can I help you today? I was like, I just want to know my blood results. He was like, oh yeah, you're fine. It's like all of that worrying and stress for nothing. He was like, you're not anemic, your thyroid's fine, blah blah blah. And by this point I had actually been feeling a lot better, so much so that I've been going to bed at like midnight recently, which is kind of crazy. My friends will be gasping right now because usually I'm like a 10 p.m. kind of girl, but no, I've been going to bed at midnight. Who am I? But yeah, so the tiredness has completely gone, so I don't know if it was a symptom of something else or what the heck it was, or whether it was just a slump from moving and starting a new job and all the stress of that, but safe to say I'm back to my usual crazy wacky self, which I'm very happy about, and happy to know that I'm not like anemic or nothing's wrong with my blood. And I've also booked on to be a blood donor because they said everything was fine. So I tried to book in my first session like sooner rather than later, because obviously if I can help I want to, but they're like fully booked. Everywhere is fully booked until I think my appointment's in July, which is quite a way away. There was an appointment available sooner than that, which was like 3 or 4 miles away, but in London that's going to take me like a good hour and a half. And as much as I want to help, I also don't want to sacrifice 3 hours of my life. Is that super selfish? Saying that out loud sounds really evil, but there's one literally down the road from me, so I was like, if I can just get an appointment there, I can just walk down in the summer sun, give some blood, walk home, and know that I've done a good thing. And it also made me really happy to see like everywhere was so booked up, because obviously it means they're getting the supply and people are donating their blood. And I'm also an organ donor. Don't know if that matters to anyone, but I think if you're thinking about doing it, definitely do it. Why not? Do it sooner rather than later. That's put me in a really weird headspace talking about that now. Wow. What a turn we took. Maybe I'll leave the podcast here. Yeah, this was kind of a random episode, but I did just want to talk about ambition. I don't know why it was next on my radar. Like last week we spoke about Netflix shows and it was super upbeat and lighthearted, but this week I just wanted to have a little chat and be like, I don't know, be a little bit candid, be a little bit like, what the heck is going on? And also I feel like it's one of those episodes where I'm like, does anyone else feel the same? And they're like, no, it's just you, Amber. But if you've lasted this long, thanks for listening with me. Sorry about talking about blood and organs, that got a little bit weird there. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you're having a fab Tuesday. I hope you're having a fab week. And I hope you had a fab weekend. And hopefully I will see you next week on Tuesday with a brand new episode. So speak to you then. Bye.